Three figures draped in heavy overcoats despite the mild spring air. Willie recognized, as did every resident of Harlem, exactly what those coats concealed. The first intruder secured the entrance. The second drew down the window shades. The man at his back produced his firearm, placed it against Bumpy's skull, pulled back the hammer. "Stay still, Willie," the hitman murmured. "Continue your work. You're not our concern." The space fell deathly quiet. 3 versus 1. Bumpy sat weaponless, overwhelmed, cornered, composed as a Sunday service. Closer, Willie. The events that unfolded during the following 47 seconds would transform into one of Harlem's most iconic episodes. 3 assassins entered that barbershop. Yet when the gunfire ceased, when the police sirens diminished, a single individual emerged breathing. And it wasn't any of the 3 carrying weapons. Johnson represented in 1957 and why particular individuals in New York had determined he must perish regardless of the price. By spring of 1957, Bumpy Johnson had evolved into something the Italian syndicate couldn't fathom. A black man they couldn't dominate, couldn't buy, and couldn't eliminate. He'd been controlling Harlem's lottery operation for more than 20 years. The numbers game wasn't merely gambling. It represented hope. Each dawn, black residents from 110 to 155th would wager their money. A nickel here, a dime there on 3 numbers that might transform their week. Those coins accumulated. By 1957, Harlem's numbers operation was generating over $20 million annually. That's $20 million the Italian organizations desired. But the lottery business was merely the beginning. What rendered Bumpy Johnson genuinely threatening was something the syndicate couldn't grasp. He was adored. Legitimate work. He'd escort them into barbershops, dining establishments, and laundries businesses he'd helped rescue and personally endorse them. This man settled his debt, Bumpy would declare. Bumpy governed through something considerably more potent. Respect. And genuine respect cannot be purchased or forced upon individuals. $20 million yearly just waiting there, safeguarded by one individual. They'd attempted the straightforward method twice. Initially, they dispatched 4 enforcers to intimidate one of Bumpy's operatives. All 4 ended up at St. Luke's Hospital that evening. The second occasion, they'd tried corrupting a Harlem official to terminate Bumpy's activities through municipal licenses. 3 days afterward, that official discovered photographs on his workspace. Photographs his spouse wouldn't welcome. The licenses received approval by midday. Bumpy wasn't simply a criminal. He was a tactician who envisioned 3 steps forward while his adversaries were still contemplating their initial move. So the Genovese organization attempted a fresh strategy. They'd recruit outsiders, individuals with 0 ties to New York, individuals Bumpy's intelligence network wouldn't identify. Sal, Marco, and Dominic Carbone, minor league muscle seeking recognition, the sort of individuals who'd attempt anything for compensation. The compensation, $30,000 divided equally, plus Brooklyn territory once the assignment concluded. The objective, Bumpy Johnson. Any moment, any location, any technique. Simply ensure his death before the week concluded. Every Thursday afternoon, invariably, Bumpy Johnson visited Willie Thompson's barbershop on 182nd Street. Identical seat, identical schedule. 2 hours of grooming, shaving, and dialogue. For 2 hours every Thursday, Bumpy was immobile, foreseeable, exposed, or so they presumed. March 11th, 1957, Philadelphia. The conference occurred in the rear chamber of a social establishment on South 9th Street. He never contaminated his hands directly. Rather, he dispatched his lieutenant, Tony Salerno, to manage the arrangement. Sal Carbone was the eldest at 34. He conducted the negotiations. 3 individuals, 3 days, 1 objective, Salerno clarified, positioning a picture of Bumpy on the surface. "This is Ellsworth Johnson." They reference him as Bumpy. "Why Bumpy?" Marco inquired. "He possesses a protrusion on his skull's rear. Childhood occurrence. Don't allow the designation to deceive you. This individual is the most perilous person north of 96th Street. He maintains informants everywhere, law enforcement, politicians, maintenance workers. Everyone in Harlem is indebted to him in some fashion. Then how do we approach?" Dominic, the youngest at 26, leaned in. Salerno grinned. "That's our reasoning for recruiting you. Nobody in New York recognizes your appearances. You're phantoms. By the moment anyone comprehends what occurred, you're 300 miles distant." He pushed an envelope across the surface. $15,000 half initially. The remainder when we observe the corpse in the publications, Salerno stated. "Don't compel me to search for it." Sal unsealed the envelope, tallied the currency. His siblings observed. "We've executed contracts previously," Sal stated deliberately. "But this assignment movement seems distinct. Salerno's expression tightened. What I'm conveying is that superior individuals have attempted. Individuals who comprehended the streets, comprehended the participants, all of them unsuccessful. Some vanished, and I believe that's the sole advantage anyone has ever possessed against him. Don't squander it. The siblings traveled to New York the following morning. The barbershop, Sal stated, unfolding a hand-sketched diagram across the motel mattress. Thursday afternoon, he's in that seat for 2 hours. One entrance at the front, one at the rear. We secure the front, monitor the rear. 3 firearms on one individual in a seat. He possesses nowhere to escape. What regarding observers? Dominic inquired. The barber? Sal dismissed it. The barber's insignificant. He observes nothing. If he's intelligent, he'll continue grooming hair like nothing transpired. If he's not, he formed a firearm with his digits. Then there's one fewer observer. Marco retracted the mechanism on his .45, inspecting the chamber. I've never terminated a renowned individual previously. By Thursday evening, he won't be renowned anymore, Sal responded. What none of them realized, what they couldn't conceivably have realized, was that by Wednesday evening, Bumpy Johnson had already obtained 3 distinct alerts regarding their presence. The publication vendor on the intersection of 132nd Street, who'd observed them surveilling the barbershop. Bumpy was aware. He'd been aware since Monday. Bumpy Johnson didn't endure 25 years in Harlem by confronting every danger that materialized. He endured by comprehending something most individuals never acquire. Bumpy was in his workspace above Small's Paradise, hearing Jerome Patterson, the identical taxi operator who transported the siblings from Penn Station. 3 Caucasian youths, Jerome stated, Italian dialects, discussed Philly the entire journey, inquired about the district, inquired about the barbershops. Bumpy acknowledged gradually, attempted to conceal it, but I observed it in the reflection. Let me deduce my picture. Jerome simply acknowledged. Bumpy transferred him $50. You never transported those individuals. You were unavailable? Comprehend? After Jerome departed, Bumpy sat in silence for nearly 60 minutes. He could have had those 3 youths terminated that evening. 1 call, 3 corpses in the East River by dawn. The Genovese organization would never comprehend what transpired to their recruited assassins, but Bumpy comprehended something deeper. The sole method to conclude this was to transmit a communication so audible, so enduring that nobody would ever attempt again. The Buffalo Soldiers. Willie Thompson was 62 years elderly, but his hands remained powerful and his senses were keener than any of his blades. There's going to be complications tomorrow, Bumpy stated quietly, occupying his customary seat. 3 individuals. They're approaching for me. Willie didn't cease sweeping. Bumpy regarded him in the reflection. I require you to have faith in me, Willie. When they enter, you continue grooming. You remain composed. When I stay closer, you descend to the surface. Comprehend? And tomorrow won't be the initial occasion. That evening, Bumpy executed his arrangements. The snare was established. Actually, Bumpy Johnson wasn't advancing into an ambush. He was constructing one. Thursday morning, Bumpy consumed breakfast at his customary restaurant. He executed his customary circuits. 3 individuals entered. Lengthy overcoats, frigid gazes. The initial one secured the entrance behind them. March 14th, 1957, 2:47 p.m. The barbershop descended into silence. Dominic, the youngest, the most enthusiastic, advanced directly behind Bumpy's seat. Willie's blade hesitated against Bumpy's cheek. His gaze encountered Bumpy's in the reflection. Bumpy provided an almost undetectable acknowledgement. Continue grooming. Dominic extended into his overcoat, extracted the .45, positioned the barrel to Bumpy's skull's rear. The chamber was silent, except for the clocks ticking on the partition. The educator was trembling. The postal employee had shut his vision. Sal advanced forward. Mr. Johnson, you comprehend our purpose here. Bumpy's vision remained shut. The heated cloth still concealed half his features. I've been anticipating you since Monday. Sal's assurance wavered. What? The taxi from Penn Station, the lodging on Delancey, the publication position on the intersection. You believe you can navigate through my district without my awareness? Dominic positioned the firearm more forcefully. Doesn't concern what you're aware of. You're still going to perish. Bumpy unsealed his vision, regarded Dominic in the reflection. For an extended moment, nobody relocated. Then Bumpy articulated again. 3 words, composed as Sunday morning. The cloth descended from Bumpy's features. In one movement, swifter than any of the carbones could comprehend, Bumpy's hand launched under the seat, extracted the .32 from its adhesive, and discharged. The initial discharge caught Dominic in the torso. He stumbled backward, firearm colliding to the surface. Marco elevated his instrument. Bumpy was already rotating in the seat, discharging again. But before he could target, the front window detonated inward. Bumpy's associates from across the thoroughfare. 2 shotguns. The communication was transparent. Sal released his instrument, elevated his hands. The entire incident had consumed 47 seconds. Bumpy elevated gradually, removed the barber's covering, advanced composed towards Sal, who was trembling so intensely he could barely maintain vertical. "I desire you to comprehend something," Bumpy stated, his tone barely exceeding a murmur. "I permitted you to exist sufficiently extended to advance through that entrance so you could observe this moment." He inclined nearer, near enough that Sal could detect the shaving foam. "Return to Philadelphia. Return to Vito Genovese. Convey to him what transpired here today. Convey to him I was aware of his scheme before his soldiers departed the train facility. Convey to him I permitted them to approach me. Convey to him I was never the individual who was ensnared." Bumpy hesitated, regarded directly into Sal's terrified vision. "You convey to him I stated Harlem hemorrhages for nobody." Sal was weeping now, actually weeping, tears streaming down his features. "And Sal," Bumpy's tone descended even lower. Sal acknowledged. He couldn't articulate. "Then advance. Don't execute. Advancing demonstrates respect. Executing demonstrates culpability. And presently, the sole element preserving you breathing is my respect for the protocol." Sal advanced out the front entrance. His limbs barely sustained him. Dominic Carbone perished on the barbershop surface. Marco Carbone hemorrhaged out in the passage before the medical transport materialized. Information propagated through the criminal underworld like wildfire. By nightfall, every criminal from Baltimore to Boston had received the narrative. 3 assassins entered Bumpy Johnson's barbershop. Only the barber emerged breathing, and he collected the disorder like it was simply another day. The Genovese organization convened an urgent conference the following week. Vito himself was silent for most of it. When he finally articulated, his tone was exhausted. This individual was aware. He was aware before our personnel departed Philadelphia. He was aware when they materialized. He was aware every step they executed, and he permitted them to advance into that barbershop regardless. He gestured negatively. "What are we supposed to execute with an individual like that?" Tony Salerno possessed no response. "We abandon Harlem solitary," Vito finally stated. "There's currency everywhere in this metropolis. We concentrate on the Bronx, Queens, the waterfront." Existed quietly for another 30 years. And above Willie's reflection in compact lettering that most patrons never detected were 5 words that Bumpy had instructed him to position there following that day. "Harlem hemorrhages for nobody." The narrative of the barbershop isn't simply regarding violence. It's regarding vision. Bumpy Johnson comprehended something that most individuals overlook their entire existences. Genuine authority isn't regarding what you can execute to your adversaries. It's regarding what your adversaries are convinced you can execute. It's regarding being 3 movements forward. It's regarding transforming their ambush into your declaration. 3 assassins advanced into that barbershop believing they possessed the advantage. They possessed the quantities. They possessed the firearms. They possessed the element of surprise. But Bumpy possessed something they couldn't anticipate. He'd permitted them to approach. If this narrative energized you, activate that subscribe mechanism. We're releasing these Bumpy Johnson narratives every week. And have faith in me, they only intensify in intensity. Release appreciation if you comprehend why the barber was the sole individual who emerged. And communicate to me in the responses. Would you have permitted Sal to exist to transport the communication? Next occasion, we're narrating the narrative of how Bumpy Johnson advanced weaponless into a chamber with Lucky Luciano and emerged with dominance of Harlem. You don't desire to overlook that. Remember, in Harlem, respect isn't provided, it's acquired.